Have you found it challenging to find YouTube channels that are reassuring and calming when it comes to financial planning for retirement or early retirement? That some of them are alarmists and just raise your anxiety, worry, and make you worry perhaps needlessly when you're already worried and anxious about your finances and retirement planning? Well, I'd like to share with you 6 channels, YouTubers and podcasters that I've discovered through the last few years of my own deep dive into YouTube and retirement planning. And these are ones I've found to be reassuring, calming, entertaining, clarifying, and reliable YouTubers. So, welcome. My name is Sarah. This is Lister Bliss. I'm not a financial advisor. Please don't take anything I say as financial advice. These are just YouTubers that I've discovered on financial planning for retirement who I'd like to share with you as recommendations because they're not just superficial. Some people have said lately, YouTube's just very superficial. To learn anything, you need to buy a course, or you need to pay a financial advisor who will take 1% of your portfolio that they manage every year. And that these are the reason I like these YouTubers so much and podcasters is because they are calming, reassuring, reliable, and have different strategies. I'll point out their strategies, and I think that's helpful when you're trying to figure out the best roadmap for your own retirement planning and financial planning. So the first one I really like is Julie. The name of her YouTube channel is Happy on Monday, and she took early retirement from teaching, and so she's an excellent teacher and she teaches so much through her YouTube channel. She is an advocate of a more conservative approach to retirement planning, at least that's my take, in that she prefers I-bonds and high yield savings accounts for her sort of bucket number 1. So she's also a 3-bucket retirement planning strategist. So she has 3 buckets, 1, 2, and 3. 1 she tends to withdraw from more immediately. 2 is a more intermediate investment bucket strategy. And then the 3rd bucket is more longer term investment with more of a growth focus, I think. So you'll have to tune into her channel to get all the details about her specific strategy, but that's sort of my take on her channel. And she's just such a good teacher and so happy. her taking early retirement is quite fun to watch because she's willing to share details of her portfolio and her life in early retirement. The second YouTube channel I want to recommend is actually 2 because I discovered them both at the same time and they have very similar philosophies, I think. It's Bigger Pockets and Choose FI. And those 2 channels, I think they sort of rely heavily on real estate income for generating income and wealth, and also more stock investing versus bond investing. And stock, I think generally they would say broad market funds and ETFs rather than individual stocks. Although they interview a lot of people and some of the people they interview probably prefer individual stocks. So, but also why I like them and recommending them is because of who I met through them, because they do interview a lot of different people and authors, investors and bloggers and YouTubers and all that. So through them, I was introduced to J.L. Collins. And J.L. Collins wrote the book, The Simple Path to Wealth. And his strategy, which is very calming and easy and simplified, is just that we should generally invest in broad market, low cost index funds. He started his own blog years ago, initially as letters to his daughter and helping her invest soundly and safely and wisely over the years. So that's sort of his take on it, and you can check out his book. And then the other person Bigger Pockets introduced me to was Kristy Shen. She wrote a book, Quit Like a Millionaire. And it's such a good book and her life story is so amazing. I'm going to do another channel on her book. Another video on her book. But you don't have to wait for my video, just go buy her book. If you really want to know how can you invest now to hopefully achieve early retirement or get your funds set up so that they're protected, your wealth protection in the face of market volatility. Her story from growing up in abject poverty in China, moving to Canada, and then she and her husband were able to retire early. At the time, she was the youngest Canadian to achieve early retirement. And some of the things, obviously, between Canada and US and early retirement and healthcare and taxes are different, but there's a lot that crosses over, and you can take so much away from her book if you're a US citizen dealing with US healthcare situation and US taxes. And US stocks that you can pick. So I really recommend her book, and any interviews with her or blog posts from her, check her out. The other YouTuber/podcaster, she's more of a podcaster, although you can watch her podcast interviews on YouTube, is Paula Pant. The name of her podcast is Afford Anything. Specifically, that we can afford anything, just not everything. And she does wonderful interviews. And I was introduced to Bill Bengen through her podcast. And if you're not familiar with Bill Bengen, he is the person credited with discovering the safe 4% withdrawal rule, which I understand he would prefer would be renamed more like the safe 4% one-time withdrawal guideline. And basically he is a graduate of MIT, where he was an astrophysicist. So yes, a rocket scientist discovered this 4% safe withdrawal guideline, one-time guideline. And this is adjusted for inflation in his rule guideline. And he does, in the interview with her, he does discuss the nuances between stocks versus bonds, the percentages of stocks versus bonds, and all of that. So Bill Bengen, and he has a book coming out too. So you can pre-order his book, and once it comes out, I will do a YouTube video on that, because it's got to be a good book. His interview was phenomenal, and it was fun to discover he retired to Arizona, and does not live too far from here, this desert. That's where I am, in the southwest Arizona desert. So Bill Bengen, and the other person Paula Pant introduced me to is Paul Merriman. Paul Merriman is an advocate of the small cap value fund investing, and you can watch his interview. He has a podcast that you can listen to as well to get his take on why he thinks small cap, meaning as versus large cap. So the large cap are the huge companies, these huge global, international, well-established companies, versus the small cap companies that are more up and coming, less well known, smaller overall value in terms of their company's worth, because they're still growing. So that's Paul Merriman, and I was introduced to both of them through Paula Pant's Afford Anything podcast. The next YouTube channel I want to mention is Buzz's Retirement Garage. Big shout out to Buzz, and I love him because he shares frequent updates on his retirement budget, his retirement portfolio, the trials and tribulations with retirement, and is still very optimistic. He's just a pleasant person to listen to learn from, very calming, very realistic, and I think you'll like him if you check out Buzz's Retirement Garage. The next YouTube channel is Jeff Teeples, and it's the name of his YouTube channel is his name, at Jeff Teeples, JEFF And the reason I enjoy his YouTube channel so much is because he was the first person I discovered on YouTube who dove deep into the whole tax implications. If I haven't lost you yet, hang with me, because I would have checked out by now with taxes. Once the word taxes is mentioned, I'm gone. But he is so calming and entertaining and reassuring. He can clarify all the tax implications with different investment strategies and Roth conversion strategies and everything. And he's a young guy. He's a young guy with family. He's not retired yet. He's just doing these videos to, one, show how he's investing for his own early retirement coming up, and giving ideas to his viewers, his subscribers. I'm an advocate of a few 3-fund or 4-fund investments. So you can check him out. And then the last one I saved for last is my favorite, and it was the first channel I discovered when I started going into the rabbit hole of investing for retirement, planning for retirement. And the name of his channel is Ex Dividend Investor. And the fact that he has remained anonymous, at least to my knowledge, I don't know who he is. He's never shown his face, as far as I know, on his YouTube channel. But he does share his portfolio balances. And I've been following him for a few years now. I followed him for a year before I made my own asset allocation, reallocated my assets based on a lot of what I learned on his YouTube channel. And I invested a lot based on what I learned on his YouTube channel. And I found him to be extremely helpful and reassuring to know that dividend investing has a place in my own portfolio, because I find that I sleep better at night knowing that if the market goes up or down, dividends are still going to be paid when you own dividend-paying investments that are safe, steady, time-tested investment companies, stock companies. What I wanted to add about Gen X dividend investing is he goes deep in explaining, oh yeah, that's what I said. He goes deep into explaining why he chose certain companies over others. And so there you have it. Those are my favorite YouTubers that are calming, reassuring, educating, and to some degree entertaining on financial planning. So until next time, stay well and happy investing.